Hello, I'm Hope Logan. I am an actor on Bold and the Beautiful, and many people really love both me and our Bold and the Beautiful drama. So I've come here to share updates about my beloved Bold and the Beautiful. Everyone, please subscribe and support me. If you do, I will keep coming every day with new updates for you. The week of May 4th through 8th in the Bold and the Beautiful opens like a storm quietly building on the horizon, where every character seems to be standing on the edge of a decision that could change everything. Hope Logan Spencer reaches a breaking point, a moment where patience, compromise, and restraint finally burn out completely. The weight of disappointment and ongoing conflict presses down on her until she can no longer ignore what she feels, and she decides she has simply had enough. Across the battlefield of emotions, Steffy Forrester Finnegan reacts with her own rising tension, her anger simmering as she continues to push back against Hope's resistance, unable to fully understand the depth of Hope's frustration. Meanwhile, Donna Logan Forrester finds herself quietly watching the chaos unfold, her concern growing heavier with every passing moment as she fears for the future stability of her family. The atmosphere around them all feels increasingly fragile, as if one wrong move could send everything crashing down. At the same time, another unsettling situation begins to take shape away from Forrester Creations. Melissa Dillon finds herself face-to-face with the reality of her stalker's presence, a chilling confrontation that strips away all remaining doubt. In that moment, she pieces everything together and realizes exactly who has been haunting her with those mysterious and unsettling calls. Very soon, viewers are expected to see the identity revealed, and all signs point toward Remy Price disguising himself in a wig, carefully hiding behind deception and manipulation. But Remy's game is far from simple, and he quickly places Dillon in an uncomfortable position, forcing her into a moral corner she never expected to face. He understands her vulnerabilities and uses them as leverage, especially when Electra Forrester's name enters the equation. Dillon is deeply conflicted because she does not want Electra to discover that her past is tangled in any way with the person responsible for tormenting her through deep-fake manipulation. Remy tightens his grip on the situation by suggesting a bargain, implying that as long as Dillon helps him reconnect with Deke Sharp, Electra will remain completely in the dark. It becomes a dangerous exchange of silence and secrets, where trust is weaponized and truth is held hostage. Meanwhile, in a completely different corner of Los Angeles, relationships and ambitions begin to shift in unexpected ways. Liam Spencer steps forward with a new idea, suggesting that Deke Sharp could become Hope's new designer at Logan, a proposal that immediately changes the direction of several intertwined futures. That single suggestion opens the door to new possibilities, making it increasingly tempting for Hope to consider joining Katie Logan Spencer's fashion house instead of staying where she is. At the same time, Brooke Logan Forrester attempts to ease growing tensions by reaching out to Katie, hoping to bring some sense of peace back into their fractured family dynamics. However, Katie remains uncertain, her instincts telling her that Brooke's intentions may not be as sincere as she claims. Despite this doubt, Katie becomes deeply fixated on the idea of Hope rising as the next major creative force within Logan, envisioning a bold new era for the company. Driven by that vision, she ends up sharing the plan with Donna, a decision that immediately raises alarm bells. Donna reacts with urgency and fear, desperately trying to shut Katie down, as she worries that these internal power struggles could push the entire family to the brink of collapse. Back at Forrester Creations, the tension finally reaches a boiling point. Hope finds herself standing at a tipping point emotionally and professionally, where every disappointment and perceived slight has accumulated into something she can no longer ignore. In that charged moment, she begins to realize that walking away from the company that has repeatedly let her down might be the only way forward. Steffy, however, remains unconvinced, believing that Hope is overreacting to the postponement of her line and failing to see the bigger picture behind her frustration. But Hope refuses to back down, standing firm in her belief that she has been disrespected not only as a designer, but as a person whose contributions have been undervalued. Her feelings extend beyond herself, as she also insists that Brooke deserves more recognition and respect within Forrester. In a bold and unexpected declaration, Hope pushes the idea that Brooke and Ridge Forrester should serve as co-CEOs together, a proposal that shakes the foundation of the company's leadership structure. Carter Walton, familiar with Hope's emotional intensity when she feels overlooked, watches the situation carefully and ultimately steps in with a warning to Steffy and Ridge, sensing that a major storm is about to break. As emotions spiral and alliances begin to shift, Hope edges closer to making a life-altering decision that could redefine her entire future. She appears ready to quit Forrester Creations and announce a new direction for her career within the Logan world, a move that is certain to ignite an explosive reaction from Steffy. The tension between them feels destined to erupt, as years of rivalry and unresolved conflict come rushing back to the surface. Elsewhere, RJ Forrester quietly continues to keep Elektra close, vowing to protect her and ensure her safety as external threats grow more complicated and unpredictable. At the same time, Dylan finds herself facing a new opportunity when Daphne Rose Walton presents her with an intriguing offer, leaving questions about whether this could lead to a new collaboration or a deeper involvement in unfolding schemes. With every storyline converging toward uncertainty, the world of the bold and the beautiful moves into a week filled with emotional confrontations, fragile alliances, and life-changing decisions. Personal struggles collide with professional ambition, and as secrets tighten their grip and tensions rise, nothing appears guaranteed to remain the same. As the week continues to unfold, the pressure building across Los Angeles refuses to ease. Instead, it tightens like a vice around every character caught in its web. At Forrester Creations, the air becomes increasingly charged with anticipation, as Hope's emotional resolve hardens into something unmistakably final. What once felt like frustration begins to transform into conviction, and those around her slowly realize this is no longer just a reaction, it is a turning point. Steffy watches closely, still convinced that Hope is letting emotion cloud her judgment, but even she cannot ignore the seriousness in Hope's tone and the steadiness in her refusal to back down. Carter Walton, always sensitive to emotional undercurrents, senses the shift before anyone else fully acknowledges it, and his concern deepens as he understands that Hope is no longer negotiating. She is preparing to walk away. Ridge, caught between leadership pressure and family complications, begins to feel the ripple effect of what this decision could unleash, while the entire company unknowingly inches closer to a breaking point it may not be able to contain. At the same time, the emotional fractures within the Logan family deepen as Katie's fixation on reshaping Logan's future grows stronger. Her belief in Hope's potential as a defining creative force becomes more than just an idea. It becomes a mission she cannot let go of, even as doubt continues to shadow Brooke's involvement in her thinking. Brooke's attempt at reconciliation, meant to soften tensions and restore balance, only intensifies Katie's skepticism, leaving their conversation hanging in unresolved tension. Donna, meanwhile, becomes increasingly alarmed as she pieces together how quickly this internal disagreement is escalating into something far more dangerous. When Katie's vision of Hope's rise is quietly revealed further, Donna's fear turns urgent, and she moves quickly to intervene, desperate to prevent a full fracture within the family's already fragile foundation. Yet the more Donna pushes back, the more it becomes clear that these divisions are no longer just disagreements. They are becoming battles of belief, loyalty, and identity. Elsewhere, the darker undercurrent of manipulation continues to grow as Dylan finds herself trapped deeper in Remy Price's web of control. The weight of his leverage presses down on her with every passing moment, and what began as a shocking revelation about his identity now evolves into a calculated game of pressure and silence. Remy remains persistent in his demands, using the fragile connection between secrets and consequences to keep Dylan compliant, while the threat of Elektra discovering the truth looms over every interaction. Dylan's fear is no longer just about her own past being exposed. It is about the possibility of destroying Elektra's trust and peace of mind. Torn between guilt and coercion, she struggles to find a way out that does not cost someone else everything. Meanwhile, Remy continues to position himself carefully, always one step ahead, ensuring that every path Dylan considers leads her back to his influence, no matter how much she resists. As these hidden pressures mount, other alliances begin to quietly shift in the background. RJ Forrester remains firmly focused on Elektra, his protective instincts intensifying as he senses that danger is not as far removed as it once seemed. His vow to keep her safe becomes more than just reassurance. It turns into a personal responsibility he refuses to abandon, even as uncertainty grows around them. Electra, unaware of the full extent of the manipulation surrounding her, continues to rely on RJ's steady presence, unknowingly standing at the center of conflicts she has not yet fully uncovered. At the same time, Daphne Rose Walton's intriguing offer to Dylan begins to take shape, opening a new possibility that could either pull her out of Remy's shadow or entangle her even further in the complications already surrounding her life. The choice ahead is unclear, but the stakes behind it feel increasingly significant, as though every direction carries hidden consequences waiting to unfold. By the time the week edges closer to its climax, every storyline converges toward a shared sense of inevitability. Hope stands on the verge of making a public and professional declaration that could permanently alter her future, while Steffy prepares herself for the inevitable fallout she believes is coming. The Logan family remains divided, torn between vision and fear, ambition and protection, as Donna fights desperately to hold the pieces together. In the shadows, Remy's control over Dylan tightens, while Electra remains unknowingly close to a truth that could shake her world. And through it all, Forrester Creations becomes the epicenter of emotional and professional upheaval, where every decision carries consequences far beyond what anyone is prepared for. As personal struggles collide with corporate power plays, the week builds toward a powerful emotional storm, one where no relationship, no alliance, and no future path is guaranteed to remain intact. As the tension refuses to settle, the final stretch of the week brings a deeper sense of inevitability, as if every decision made so far has only been pulling the characters closer to an explosive confrontation. At Forrester Creations, Hope's resolve continues to solidify into action rather than emotion, and those around her begin to understand that she is no longer asking for validation or compromise. She is preparing to redefine her entire professional identity, stepping away from a place that she believes has repeatedly undermined her value. Steffy, still unwilling to accept Hope's interpretation of events, finds herself growing more frustrated as she realizes that no argument seems capable of changing Hope's mind. The tension between them becomes less about business and more about years of unresolved rivalry and emotional history resurfacing all at once. Carter Walton watches this unraveling with growing concern, recognizing that once Hope makes her move, there will be no easy way to contain the fallout that follows. At the same time, the internal fracture within the Logan family reaches a more volatile stage, as Katie's determination to elevate Hope within the Logan fashion empire begins to spread beyond private conversations. What once felt like a strategic idea now carries the weight of a personal conviction, and that shift begins to unsettle everyone involved. Brooke's earlier attempt to restore peace only deepens the divide, as Katie's uncertainty about her sincerity continues to linger like an unresolved question. Donna, increasingly alarmed by how quickly the situation is spiraling, intensifies her efforts to intervene, fearing that what began as professional disagreement is now threatening to fracture the family from within. Her desperation grows as she realizes that every attempt to calm the situation seems to push Katie further into her own vision, rather than away from it. The emotional stakes rise as loyalty within the family is tested, and what once felt like unity begins to feel like competing futures colliding head-on. Elsewhere, Dylan's situation becomes even more suffocating as Remy Price continues to tighten his psychological grip. The more she tries to maintain control over her own choices, the more he strategically corners her with reminders of what she stands to lose if the truth ever comes out. His insistence on involving Deke Sharp becomes a key pressure point, turning what could have been a simple manipulation into a layered network of dependency and fear. Dylan's internal struggle deepens as she weighs the consequences of silence against the devastation that exposure could bring to Electra Forrester's life. Every option feels like a compromise of her integrity, and the emotional toll begins to show in subtle but powerful ways. Remy, however, remains calm and calculated, continuing to present his demands as the only path forward, ensuring that Dylan feels there is no escape without sacrifice. Meanwhile, Electra remains at the emotional center of an unfolding storm she cannot yet see fully forming around her. RJ Forrester's protective instincts intensify as he continues to keep her close, his commitment to her safety becoming more pronounced with each passing moment. While Elektra finds comfort in his presence, there is an unspoken tension building beneath their interactions, as outside forces quietly close in. RJ's determination to shield her begins to take on a heavier emotional weight, as if he subconsciously senses that the truth surrounding her situation may eventually become impossible to contain. At the same time, Daphne Rose Walton's offer to Dylan gains new significance, hinting at a possible crossroads that could shift alliances and expose hidden agendas. Whether this opportunity becomes a lifeline or another layer of complication remains uncertain, but its presence adds yet another thread to an already tangled web. As the week nears its end, all paths seem to converge toward a single, unavoidable moment of change. Hope stands closer than ever to announcing her departure from Forrester Creations, a move that would not only redefine her career, but also ignite an emotional firestorm across both the Forrester and Logan families. Steffy prepares herself for the confrontation she believes is inevitable, while Carter quietly braces for the structural impact it will have on the company itself. Katie's vision for Logan continues to spread tension through her family, with Donna fighting to prevent a complete breakdown of trust and unity. In the shadows, Remy's control over Dylan remains unbroken, while Elektra unknowingly remains just steps away from truths that could reshape her world entirely. And as every character moves closer to decisions that cannot be undone, the week closes on a charged sense of anticipation, where personal loyalties, professional ambitions, and buried secrets all collide, setting the stage for consequences that will echo far beyond what anyone is ready to face. As the pressure reaches its peak, the final moments of the unfolding week feel less like separate storylines and more like a single, tightening spiral where every character is being pulled toward irreversible change. At Forrester Creations, the atmosphere grows almost suffocating as Hope finally steps fully into her decision, no longer wavering between emotion and hesitation. What once was internal conflict now becomes outward clarity, and the weight of everything she has endured, dismissals, disagreements, and feeling unheard, pushes her to a point of no return. Steffy watches this transformation with a mix of disbelief and frustration, still convinced that Hope is allowing pride and emotion to override reason, but the conviction in Hope's stance leaves little room for debate. Carter Walton, standing in the middle of the growing divide, senses the professional earthquake about to hit and quietly prepares for the aftermath that no one at Forrester can truly control. Even Ridge begins to understand that this is no longer a family disagreement. It is a structural shift that could reshape the entire company's future. Across the Logan family, the emotional turbulence deepens as Katie's vision for Hope continues to ripple outward, pulling more people into a debate that was once private but is now impossible to contain. Her belief that Hope represents the future of Logan becomes increasingly rigid, as if she is no longer discussing strategy but defending destiny itself. Brooke's attempts to bridge the growing divide begin to lose effectiveness, as Katie's doubts about sincerity harden into emotional resistance. Donna, increasingly alarmed, feels the situation slipping beyond repair and intensifies her efforts to prevent a complete collapse of trust within the family. Every conversation now feels like a turning point, where even the smallest disagreement carries the potential to fracture long-standing bonds. The Logan family, once defined by unity and resilience, now stands on the edge of internal division, where loyalty is no longer shared but tested. At the same time, Dylan's world grows darker as Remy Price's control tightens into something far more psychological and calculated. What once felt like manipulation now feels like confinement, as every attempt she makes to reclaim independence is met with another reminder of what she stands to lose. His fixation on Deke Sharp remains central to his demands, turning Dylan into an unwilling participant in a plan she never chose. The pressure of protecting Elektra Forrester from painful truths weighs heavily on her conscience, creating a silent internal war between fear and responsibility. Remy, however, continues to operate with unsettling calm, treating every interaction as another step in a carefully constructed strategy that leaves Dylan fewer and fewer options. The balance of power in their dynamic becomes increasingly one-sided, and escape begins to feel less like a choice and more like a distant possibility. Elsewhere, Elektra remains unknowingly positioned at the center of multiple overlapping secrets, her life continuing in relative calm while the storm around her intensifies. R.J. Forrester's protective instincts grow sharper, his presence becoming more constant as he quietly monitors the world around her for any sign of danger. His vow to keep her safe takes on deeper meaning as he begins to sense that unseen forces are closing in, even if the full truth remains just out of reach. Elektra, trusting and unaware of the full scope of what surrounds her, continues to move forward without realizing how many lives are being shaped by her proximity to these hidden conflicts. Meanwhile, Daphne Rose Walton's offer to Dylan becomes an increasingly significant crossroads, hinting at the possibility of escape, collaboration, or deeper entanglement depending on the choice made. Every path forward feels uncertain, as though each option carries consequences that will not remain contained for long. By the time the week reaches its final emotional crest, everything converges toward a breaking point that cannot be delayed or softened. Hope stands ready to deliver a decision that will reverberate across both Logan and Forrester worlds, igniting reactions that range from shock to outrage. Steffy prepares for impact, fully expecting confrontation once Hope's announcement becomes reality, while Carter braces for the professional consequences that will follow. Katie remains consumed by her vision for Logan's future, unaware of how close the family is to fracturing under the weight of competing beliefs. Donna continues her desperate attempts to preserve unity, even as her fears of collapse grow stronger with each passing moment. In the shadows, Remy maintains his hold over Dylan, ensuring that silence remains his greatest weapon, while Elektra unknowingly stands on the edge of truths that could change everything she believes about those around her. And as all these threads draw together, the week closes not with resolution, but with the unmistakable sense that every secret, every decision, and every emotional fracture is about to erupt into consequences that will reshape relationships, loyalties, and futures in ways no one is prepared for. As the aftermath of mounting tensions begins to settle into something heavier and more permanent, the world of the bold and the beautiful moves into a phase where consequences start to take center stage, even before all decisions are fully spoken aloud. At Forrester Creations, Hope's presence feels different now, no longer defined by uncertainty or hesitation, but by the unmistakable energy of someone standing on the edge of departure. The people around her can sense it without needing confirmation, as if the air itself has shifted in response to her internal resolution. Steffi remains locked in her belief that Hope is making a mistake, but there is now a sharper edge to her frustration, as she begins to realize that stopping Hope may no longer be possible. Carter Walton, caught between professional responsibility and personal understanding, quietly absorbs the magnitude of what this shift will mean for the company's future direction. Even Ridge finds himself forced to consider not just the emotional fallout, but the structural consequences that could ripple through every level of Forrester Creations. Within the Logan family, the emotional strain deepens into something far more fragile and uncertain. Katie's unwavering focus on Hope's potential within Logan continues to grow stronger, but that strength now carries a sense of isolation, as her perspective increasingly separates her from Brooke and Donna. What once felt like shared ambition is now fractured by mistrust, miscommunication, and lingering doubts about intent. Brooke's continued attempts to repair the tension begin to feel like distant echoes rather than effective intervention, as Katie's belief system around Hope's future becomes more immovable. Donna, increasingly overwhelmed by the emotional chaos, finds herself struggling to maintain any sense of stability within the family structure, fearing that every conversation could be the one that breaks everything apart for good. The Logan household, once a symbol of unity and resilience, now feels like a space filled with unspoken tension and emotional fault lines, ready to crack under pressure. Elsewhere, Dylan's situation under Remy Price's control becomes even more psychologically consuming, as the boundaries between coercion and inevitability begin to blur. Every interaction with him reinforces the same underlying truth, that her silence is not voluntary, but carefully enforced through fear and emotional manipulation. The connection to Deke Sharp remains the anchor of Remy's leverage, a constant reminder that every choice Dylan makes carries consequences beyond herself. Her internal conflict intensifies as she struggles to reconcile her own moral responsibility with the threat hanging over Electra Forrester's future. The burden of secrecy becomes heavier with each passing moment, isolating her further as she realizes how deeply entangled she has become in a situation that no longer feels escapable. Remy, meanwhile, continues to operate with unsettling patience, confident that time and pressure will eventually erode whatever resistance remains. At the same time, Electra's world continues forward in relative calm, unaware of how many layers of deception and conflict are quietly building around her. RJ Forrester remains steadfast in his role as her protector, his vigilance growing more instinctive as he begins to sense that unseen dangers are moving closer than they appear. His commitment to her safety becomes increasingly personal, as if he understands without fully knowing that the stakes surrounding her are far greater than what is visible on the surface. Electra, trusting in the stability she believes surrounds her, continues to navigate her life without realizing how deeply her name is already woven into conflicts she has not yet been exposed to. Meanwhile, Daphne Rose Walton's offer to Dylan continues to linger as a potential turning point, a path that could either disrupt Remy's control or deepen the complexity of the situation, depending on how it unfolds. The uncertainty surrounding this decision adds yet another layer of tension to an already unstable web of relationships and hidden motives. As everything begins to converge once again, the sense of inevitability grows stronger with each passing moment. Hope edges closer to making her final announcement, a decision that will not only redefine her career, but also send shockwaves through both families and reshape long-standing dynamics. Steffy braces herself for confrontation, preparing for the emotional and professional fallout she believes is unavoidable, while Carter quietly anticipates the structural changes that will follow such a major departure. Katie remains locked in her belief that Logan's future depends on embracing Hope's potential, even as that belief pushes her further apart from her own family. Donna continues to fight against the growing fragmentation, desperate to preserve whatever unity remains before it is completely lost. In the background, Remy maintains his grip on Dylan, ensuring that silence remains his strongest weapon, while Electra unknowingly stands just steps away from truths that could permanently alter her understanding of those she trusts. And as the week draws toward its final emotional crest, the sense of anticipation becomes overwhelming, because every secret, every unresolved conflict, and every unspoken truth is now on the verge of breaking into consequences that will change everything that follows.